Why would a message from God need to disappear after you have seen it all? Not because someone is coming to censor it. Not because this video contains a forbidden secret. The reason is more personal than that. Chosen one, there comes a point when another message stops helping you. You have heard the promise. You have asked for confirmation. You have watched the signs. You have prayed over the same decision from 6 different directions, but something inside you still says you need one more sign before you move. That is what we need to talk about, because the message you are waiting for may have already arrived. And if it has, then your problem is not silence. Your problem is recognizing what is already in front of you. Before this is over, you will understand 3 things. You will see why more information can sometimes create less certainty. You will see why sincere people can confuse confirmation with clarity. And you will see why the condition of the receiver can matter just as much as the signal it is trying to recognize. There is also one private test I want you to hold in your mind. If every spiritual video on your phone disappeared tonight, would you still know the next honest step you need to take tomorrow morning? Do not answer too quickly. That question is more important than it first appears. Maybe you already know the conversation you need to have. Maybe you already know the boundary you need to set. Maybe you already know the work you need to begin. But instead of acting, you keep searching for a feeling strong enough to remove every trace of uncertainty. That search can feel spiritual. It can feel careful. It can even feel responsible. But sometimes it hides a different pattern, because collecting more messages can become easier than making one difficult decision with the information you already have. This does not mean your faith is weak. It does not mean your prayers were meaningless. It does not mean you imagined every moment that felt important. It simply means that information and clarity are not the same thing. You can know more and still feel less certain. You can hear 10 opinions and become more confused than before. You can save 20 videos and still wake up tomorrow with no clear action. That is the first thing I want you to notice. The goal of this message is not to make you dependent on another message. It is to help you recognize the point where listening must become movement. That is why the word disappear matters. A useful message should eventually complete its work. For now, do not delete anything. Just stay with the question. What if the thing you keep calling a lack of guidance is actually a lack of clarity? If that possibility touches something real in you, write this simple phrase in the comments. I choose clarity. Not as a promise to me, not as a performance for anyone else. Use it as a marker that you are willing to look at this pattern without hiding from it. Because the next part is where the pattern becomes visible. You are going to see how uncertainty turns into searching, how searching creates temporary relief, and how temporary relief quietly teaches you to search again. And once you recognize that cycle, another question opens. Why does clarity disappear even when sincerity remains? There is a trap that works best on people who genuinely care about getting the decision right. It begins with uncertainty. Something happens, you feel tension, and you ask for confirmation. For a moment, the answer gives you relief. Then the feeling returns. Maybe you misunderstood it. Maybe you need another sign. So you search again, and the second answer calms you for a little while. Then doubt comes back, asking for something stronger. This is how a search for guidance becomes a repeating cycle. Uncertainty creates searching. Searching creates temporary relief. Relief fades, and the mind learns that the fastest way to feel safe is to search again. I call this the confirmation trap. It does not mean confirmation is bad. It means confirmation can become a substitute for action when you use it to remove every feeling of uncertainty. Discernment asks for enough information to move wisely. Fear asks for enough information to guarantee that nothing can go wrong. One is possible, the other can keep you waiting forever. Maybe it is a relationship that needs an honest conversation. Maybe it is a career move you have researched for months. You may already know the next reasonable step, but your mind keeps demanding emotional certainty before it allows movement. And every new message promises that certainty for a few minutes. That is why this pattern feels so convincing. Each new confirmation gives you a short release from tension, but if certainty disappears when the video ends, the message did not become a decision. Here is the distinction that changes everything. Guidance can help you choose. It cannot remove the basic uncertainty of being human. No honest decision comes with total control over the future. The person who waits for perfect certainty may look patient from the outside. Inside, they may be circling the same question for weeks. They are not gathering facts anymore. They are trying to make fear disappear before they act. And that is where the trap gets stronger. The more you search, the more interpretations you collect. The more interpretations you collect, the more possibilities your mind must compare. Eventually, the thing meant to create clarity creates more noise. This is why another sign can sometimes make you less certain. It adds another voice to an already crowded room. Then you ask which voice is right, and the search begins again. So ask yourself one clean question. If no new confirmation arrived for the next 7 days, what would you already know you need to do? Do not focus on the whole future. Focus on the next honest action. Maybe the answer is small. Send the email, make the call, set the boundary, open the document. Clarity often becomes visible when you stop demanding a complete map. Seeking guidance is not the problem. The problem begins when seeking becomes a way to avoid deciding. That distinction removes shame without removing responsibility. But there is still a deeper question. Why do some people fall into this trap harder than others, even when their intentions are good? The answer has less to do with worthiness than you may think. Sometimes the person asking for another sign is not spiritually empty. Sometimes that person is simply exhausted, overloaded, and trying to decide with a mind that has not had a quiet moment in weeks. If you have been blaming yourself for feeling scattered, this part matters. A sincere person can still be tired, a faithful person can still be overloaded, and a meaningful life can become difficult to process when attention is pulled in too many directions. That distinction is important. Spiritual sincerity, emotional state, and cognitive clarity are not the same thing. You can care deeply and still lose focus. You can believe strongly and still feel mentally foggy. You can know what matters and still struggle to organize your attention around the next step. None of that automatically means you have lost your calling. Look at the pattern in ordinary moments. You read the same paragraph twice because nothing stayed with you. You walk into a room and forget why you went there. You open your phone for one task, then find yourself somewhere completely different 20 minutes later. You sit down to make one decision, but 5 other unfinished problems enter the room with it. By evening, even a small choice can feel heavier than it should. These moments do not prove anything spiritual. They do show what overload can feel like in daily life. And when that same overloaded mind is trying to interpret every sign, every feeling, every delay, and every possible meaning, confusion can multiply quickly. This is where many people make the wrong conclusion. They feel less clear, so they assume they have become less connected. They feel distracted, so they assume they are failing. They cannot decide, so they believe they must wait for another message. But what if the problem is simpler than that? What if your sincerity remained intact while your ability to process everything became strained? That possibility changes the way you look at yourself. It separates worthiness from clarity. It allows you to stop turning every tired day into a spiritual verdict. Maybe you have been trying harder for months. More prayer, more reading, more videos, more notes, more analysis. Yet the extra effort has not produced the clean sense of direction you expected. Sometimes, adding more effort to an overloaded system does not create relief. It creates more material to sort through. Then you mistake the growing pile of information for progress, even while the next action remains untouched. A clear mind can use a small amount of information well. A scattered mind can drown inside information that would normally be manageable. Now we can return to the question from the beginning. Why does clarity disappear even when sincerity remains? One possible answer is that the receiver is carrying too much at once. Think of a room filled with 10 conversations. None of the voices needs to be evil or false. There are simply too many voices competing for attention. The problem is not always the quality of the message. Sometimes it is the condition in which the message must be processed. That is the next idea we need to examine. I call it the receiver problem. And once you see it clearly, the question changes from asking for a louder signal to asking what would help you receive what is already there. Think about a radio for a moment. A clear signal can exist, but the receiver still affects what you hear. This is only a metaphor, but it points to something useful. The message can matter, and the condition of the person receiving it can matter too. I call this the receiver problem. When you are rested, focused, and emotionally steady, one piece of information can be enough. When you are exhausted, distracted, or mentally saturated, even a simple decision can feel buried under static. That does not mean the signal became weaker. It means your ability to sort, compare, and respond may have changed. And this is where many sincere people make the same mistake. They ask for louder guidance. They search for a stronger sign. They add another video, another interpretation, another opinion, another method. But if the receiver is overloaded, adding more signal can create more competition instead of more clarity. You have probably felt this in ordinary life. Someone explains something to you when you are calm, and it makes sense immediately. The same explanation on a stressful day can feel confusing, even though the words have not changed. That is why your state matters, not as a judgment of your faith, not as a verdict on your worth. It matters because attention is part of how you process anything that reaches you. So maybe the better question is not, why am I not receiving enough? Maybe the better question is, what condition am I in when I try to receive? That shift sounds small, but it changes the entire direction of the search. Instead of demanding more input, you begin looking at the quality of the space inside which the input must land. And this is where I found something unexpected. It came from a very different direction than spiritual content. It came from the way researchers have studied how the brain handles specialized functions, attention, and cooperation across different regions. I am not saying neuroscience can prove a spiritual message. It cannot. I am saying it can give us a practical language for something you already recognize, which is that a crowded mind does not process information the same way as a calm one. Later, I will show you the simple tool that made this idea practical for me. It does not ask you to force concentration. It does not require pages of journaling, and the actual listening process takes only a few minutes. For now, I want you to notice the logic. If more information is not solving the problem, then perhaps the next breakthrough does not come from adding more. Perhaps it comes from changing the condition in which you receive what is already there. This is the point where the confirmation trap and the receiver problem meet. One keeps adding signals. The other explains why those signals can become harder to use. And once those two ideas connect, a new possibility appears. Maybe you are not as far from clarity as you think. Maybe you do not need a dramatic revelation. Maybe you need less noise, better attention, and a state that gives your mind room to organize what it already knows. Hold that thought, because the next part matters. We need to look at what seems different about the way you used your mind before life became this crowded. What if you do not need another message at all, but a better condition in which to receive what you already know? Think back to a time when curiosity came more easily. Maybe it was childhood. Maybe it was your teenage years. Ideas moved quickly, imagination felt natural, and you could become absorbed in something without constantly checking what everyone else thought. That does not mean children are automatically wiser. It means the experience of attention can feel more fluid before adult life fills every open space with pressure, deadlines, notifications, responsibilities, and constant comparison. As you get older, the mind learns useful structure. You become better at planning, filtering, and protecting yourself from mistakes. But there can also be a cost when everything becomes overmanaged. You start editing ideas before they fully form. You judge possibilities too quickly. You move from one task to another without giving either task enough uninterrupted attention. Over time, that natural sense of mental flow can feel harder to reach. Researchers have spent decades studying how different parts of the brain contribute to different kinds of processing. Dr. Roger Sperry was one of the major figures in that history, and he received the Nobel Prize in 1981 for research involving the functions of the cerebral hemispheres. That research is important background, but it does not prove that any specific audio program works. Keep that distinction clear. Science can inform an idea without automatically validating every product built around that idea. What matters here is the broader insight. The brain is not one simple switch. Different systems contribute different strengths, and useful thinking often depends on coordination rather than one single mode doing everything. Now connect that to your own experience. There are moments when analysis helps you. There are moments when imagination helps you. There are moments when you need both, because a good decision often requires logic and possibility working together. The problem may not be that you lost something forever. The problem may be that you keep trying to recover clarity by adding more. More videos, more methods, more advice, more rules, more opinions, more tabs, open in the mind. That is the midpoint twist. What if recovery does not begin with more input? What if it begins with a different operating condition? Earlier, I told you I found something from an unexpected direction. I did not reveal it then because the idea would have sounded like another shortcut without the context you have now. Now the context is clear. The confirmation trap explains why more signals can increase uncertainty. The receiver problem explains why overload changes how those signals are processed. And the brain research gives us a practical reason to care about coordination, not just effort. So maybe you are not 50 steps away from feeling clearer. Maybe you are one change in operating condition away from using what you already possess more effectively. That does not guarantee a breakthrough. It does not replace judgment. It does not replace prayer, rest, medical care, or action. But it does open the door to a practical experiment. And now, we can finally close the loop I opened earlier. I am going to show you the tool, how its creators explain it, what it actually asks you to do, and the limits you should understand before you decide whether it belongs in your routine. If you remember only one part of this message, remember what comes next. We have reached the point where the spiritual language, the attention problem, and the practical solution finally meet. The why is simple. You may not be lacking guidance. You may be trying to process too many signals while your attention is fragmented. The what is also simple. You need a condition that makes clarity easier to access. And the who matters most. The version of you that moves forward may not need to become more spiritual. That version may simply need to become clearer. This is where the research background becomes relevant. Dr. Roger Sperry received the Nobel Prize in 1981 for work involving the specialized functions of the cerebral hemispheres. That history helped shape later interest in how different brain systems coordinate. But be precise here. Sperry did not study the product I am about to show you. His Nobel Prize does not prove this product works. The connection is background, not certification. The creators of the tool use that background to explain their own approach. They describe it as a way to encourage coordination through a short auditory sequence, using language such as neural sync technology and whole brain activation. Those are the creator's terms. They are not a promise that everyone will experience the same result. Before I tell you the name, consider two reported experiences shared around this program. One woman from California said she had already tried several practices and still felt disconnected. After using the audio, she reported feeling clearer and more internally settled. A man from Texas described a different problem. His issue was mental fog and difficulty making decisions. After using the program, he reported that his thinking felt clearer and that decisions became easier to approach. Those are testimonials, not guarantees. They matter as personal reports, but they should not be treated as proof of what will happen for you. The program is called the Genius Switch. It was created by Doctor Daniel Barone. The format is simple. It is a digital auditory sequence designed to be listened to with headphones, usually with your eyes closed while you relax. The core session takes about 8 minutes. The creators present it as a once daily practice. You do not need pages of notes, a mantra, or a complicated meditation system before you can use it. The creators describe the method as neural sync technology. Their explanation is that the audio is designed to support more coordinated brain activity. Treat that as the product explanation, not established medical proof. This distinction matters because trust matters. I would rather tell you exactly what is being claimed than turn a short audio into a miracle story. The Genius Switch is not for everyone. If you want a guaranteed transformation, this cannot honestly give you that. If you want a short daily auditory practice that you can test for yourself, then it may be worth examining. Think of it as a tool, not a replacement for judgment. It does not replace prayer, sleep, medical care, or the hard decision only you can make. At the time of the product information used for this script, the offer is listed at $39 for lifetime digital access. Before buying anything, verify the current price and terms on the official page, because offers can change. The package also lists several bonuses. They include a guided visualization resource, a smart grocery shopping guide, a classic manifestation book, and a 5 habits infographic. The main question is simpler. Does an 8-minute daily listening practice fit the support you are looking for right now? There is also a money-back guarantee described on the official offer page. That reduces the financial downside, but it does not mean there is literally no risk. You still need to read the terms and understand how refunds work before you purchase. And maybe you are thinking, this sounds too good to be true. That is a reasonable reaction. Do not buy because a voice on a video tells you to believe. Look at the explanation, read the page, check the guarantee. Decide whether the protocol itself makes sense for you. If you want the exact program described here, use the official page linked in the description or the pinned comment. Do not assume that a random audio with a similar name on another platform is the same product. Read the page first, see what is included. Check the current price, the refund terms, and the instructions. If it fits what you need, the link is there. But remember what brought us here. The product is not the destination. The destination is clarity that becomes action. A tool may support the receiver. It cannot choose your life for you. And in the next part, we need to talk about what happens after the noise becomes quieter, because that is where the real test begins. A tool can support the receiver. It cannot make the decision for you. The goal was never to replace your judgment with an audio or another person telling you what your life should mean. Clarity is useful because it gives action somewhere to begin. Imagine tomorrow morning for a moment. You wake up and resist the urge to reach for another message. You sit quietly, open a notebook, and write down the one honest thing you already know needs your attention. Maybe it is one email, maybe it is one conversation, maybe it is one boundary you have delayed setting, maybe it is one page of work you have avoided because the whole project felt too large. You do not solve your entire future. You simply choose the next clean step. That is what movement can look like. It is often quieter than people expect. There may be no dramatic sign, no rush of certainty, and no perfect feeling that removes every doubt before you begin. You notice, you discern, you choose, then you act. And after you act, you learn something new. Reality gives you feedback. You adjust. You correct course. That process can create more useful clarity than hours of trying to predict every possible outcome before taking the first step. This is why a calmer receiver matters. The point is not to become someone who never feels fear. The point is to become someone who can hear fear without automatically letting it control the next decision. You may still pray. You may still reflect. You may still seek wise counsel when the situation deserves it. But guidance becomes different when it supports movement instead of replacing movement. Think about the version of you who no longer opens 5 videos before sending 1 email. That person is not reckless. That person has learned that uncertainty is not always a stop sign. They can pause without freezing. They can listen without collecting endlessly. They can make a reasonable choice and remain willing to change direction when new information appears. That is the identity shift we have been building toward. I do not chase every signal. I recognize what is mine, and I move. Notice how different that feels from trying to force certainty. One identity waits to feel completely safe. The other respects fear, checks the facts, and still takes the next honest step. And now we return to the question that has been open from the very beginning. Why must this message disappear after you have seen it all? The answer is not that the video becomes forbidden. The answer is not that you have to erase evidence of what you heard. The deeper answer is about what a message is supposed to do when its work is complete. We are ready to close that loop now. And once you see the last message principle, you may never look at confirmation the same way again. A useful message has completed its work when you no longer need repeated exposure to feel capable of acting. That is, the last message principle. It does not mean every message must be forgotten. It means the purpose of guidance is not endless consumption. Think about everything we have connected. The confirmation trap showed you how uncertainty can turn into repeated searching. The receiver problem showed you why an overloaded mind can struggle to use even meaningful information. Then we reached the threshold. Maybe you are not dozens of steps away from movement. Maybe the next shift begins when you stop adding signals and start creating the condition to use what you already know. Now the title makes sense. Delete this after watching does not have to mean a literal command. It can mean release the habit of returning to the same message whenever fear appears. You can remember what mattered. You can write down one insight. You can take one action. Then you can let the message finish its job. That is what most people miss. A message becomes powerful when it stops being entertainment and becomes behavior. If you keep replaying the same insight without changing anything, the repetition can start to feel like progress. But movement asks for something different. It asks you to carry the insight into a decision where the outcome is not guaranteed. That is why this principle can feel uncomfortable. It removes the hiding place. You cannot keep asking for a new answer when the old answer already gave you a reasonable next step. And this is also where the tool I showed you belongs. If the 8-minute listening practice fits what you need, you can read the official page through the description or pinned comment. Check the current terms for yourself, then make your own decision. After that, come back to the real point. No tool should become another form of endless confirmation. Use what helps, test it honestly, and keep moving. The last message principle is not anti-guidance, it is pro-completion. Guidance should eventually produce a choice, a boundary, a conversation, a piece of work, a correction, or a clear decision to wait for a specific reason. There is a difference between waiting with purpose and waiting because you are afraid to choose. One has a condition, one has a reason, the other keeps asking for another sign because uncertainty feels unbearable. So here is the question I want you to carry into the final part. What would change if you stopped measuring spiritual progress by how many messages you receive and started measuring it by how honestly you respond to what you already understand? Do not leave before the final declaration. It answers the private test from the beginning, and it closes the entire message without asking you to buy anything else. Because the final step is not another explanation. It is a decision about the person you are becoming. If every spiritual video on your phone disappeared tonight, would you still know the next honest step you need to take tomorrow morning? That was the private test from the beginning. Now, you have enough context to answer it differently. You do not need to know your entire future. You do not need a complete map. You do not need certainty about every consequence. You need enough clarity to recognize the next honest step, then enough courage to take it. Close your eyes for a moment if it is safe to do so. Let your shoulders soften. Take one slow breath and imagine the noise around you becoming quieter. You do not have to fight every thought. Let the extra voices move into the background. Let the opinions, predictions, fears, and unfinished possibilities lose some of their volume. Now picture one decision in front of you. Not 10, just one. The conversation, the task, the boundary, the application, the first page, the phone call, or the simple act of waiting because you have a real reason to wait. Ask yourself what fear sounds like. Fear often demands guarantees. It wants to know everything before anything begins. It says that uncertainty means danger, and that another message will finally make the risk disappear. Now, ask what clarity sounds like. Clarity may be quieter. It may simply say, "This is the next reasonable step. I cannot control the whole outcome, but I can respond honestly to what I know now." Stay with that difference for a moment. You are not required to chase every signal. You are not required to turn every coincidence into an instruction. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to think. You are allowed to seek wise help. And you are allowed to make a decision without perfect certainty. Say these words silently if they fit you. I do not chase every signal. I do not need endless confirmation. I can pause. I can discern. I can choose. I can move. I trust myself to recognize the next honest step. And now the final declaration. I am not waiting for another message to become the person this message was calling forward. That is the shift. The message does not disappear because someone hides it from you. It disappears because its job is finished. The confusion does not have to control the next step. The habit of endless confirmation does not have to control the next step. You can carry the lesson without carrying the dependence. If you want a simple phrase to mark that decision, write this in the comments. I choose clarity. Or use the words, the message has become movement. Then let those words mean something practical. When this video ends, choose one honest action. Make it small enough to do, clear enough to recognize, and real enough that your life looks slightly different after you complete it. You were never meant to collect this message forever. You were meant to use it. And now you know why you were never meant to keep this message. You were meant to become what it was pointing toward.